Welcome back to the Woven Well podcast. I truly believe that a key part in empowering and educating women is connecting them with other women walking the same journey. It's so important that we know that we're not alone because it can really feel that way. So, because of that, we frequently have episodes with real clients of Woven Natural Fertility Care to hear their stories and gain insight and encouragement from our community of women. So today we get to talk with Courtney, a longtime client who began working with us back in 2020, and she has used it through multiple reproductive stages of life, which is great because that's exactly the point. That's what we want every woman to be able to do. So, Courtney, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I would love listeners to get to know you a little bit more before we go into all that Creighton has done for you. So, will you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Courtney. I've been married to my husband Jake for 5 years, and we just celebrated our daughter's first birthday this past week. We've been living overseas in Thailand for the past few years, but we're about to move back to the States. And I have been using Creighton for 4 years now, and it's been wonderful, and we haven't looked back.
Yeah. And like you said, through lots of transitions, moves,
Yes.
and family growth, and all sorts of
Yes.
things. What brought you to work with us?
Yeah, so when I first got married, I didn't think there were any options really besides getting on hormonal birth control. I'd heard stories of people getting pregnant on their honeymoon, and we did not want to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't in the stage of life to have a pregnancy at that time. So I got on the pill and didn't think much of it. But a few months into marriage, I started to question what the pill was doing to my health. It was sort of
Mm-hmm.
just like a nagging feeling in the back of my mind. And
Yeah.
so I knew a friend who was using Creighton. So I asked her a few questions about it, and she made me feel confident that I could pursue it as an option. And so after my husband and I talked it through, I decided to start working with you and doing Creighton.
By the way, I love that it was community that brought you into this. It was a friend who let you know you can do it. And that's the
Mhm.
whole point of these episodes is to empower the listeners out there who think, I don't know if it's for me. I don't know if I can do it. And you had that friend who was already working with us and could give you that confirmation. So hopefully this episode will be that to others who maybe don't have a friend doing it. But listeners, you can do it. Okay. So, um, well, what was it like learning the Creighton system and how did that impact your journey at all?
Yeah, so working with you was great. It was really clear. I feel like from the beginning, there was a lot to learn, but I felt confident. I feel like from the beginning. But I stopped taking the pill and I started using Creighton, and we waited for my cycles to come back. And charting is really weird when you're not having cycles. And so I was just waiting and watching my chart, and it kept not coming back. And then eventually it was longer than it normally takes someone to get their cycles back after going off the pill. And so that was when you recommended seeing a NAPRO doctor. And so I was nervous about all of that, but I took that step. And then we did a bunch of testing. I still wasn't getting my cycles back. So I went on progesterone, and through blood work, we found that I was having blood sugar issues and thyroid issues that I had no idea was going on. And so started treating that, which was great. But I still wasn't getting my cycles back naturally. And so through lots of other tests, we actually found a cyst on one of my ovaries. And
Mm.
so then I worked with a NAPRO surgeon and did laparoscopic surgery, and we were able to remove that cyst. And while he was in there, he also found endometriosis and removed that as well, which I have no idea if a non-NAPRO doctor would have even done that. I don't think that they would
Mm.
have. And I had no idea. It was like silent endometriosis. I had no symptoms beyond not having my cycles.
Mm.
But after all of that and moving overseas, I finally, a couple of months later, was able to get my cycles back naturally. And then a couple of months after that, we conceived our baby girl. Yeah, and it's just crazy to think about our journey, because if I had stayed on hormonal birth control, if I had waited until we were ready to start a family, this would be a very different story. And so I think all the time about the provision it was of the Lord to just give me that instinct that something wasn't right, and that friend to recommend this as an
Mm.
option. So,
Absolutely. And I love that openness that you had to even consider it and to look into it. And like you said, when we first started working together and you were learning the Creighton system, you were
mhm.
feeling confident about that, but you were nervous or uncertain about moving forward with nanotechnology. And I respect
Uh-huh.
that so much. I really appreciate you sharing that because sometimes it does feel scary or overwhelming to try something new, especially if it feels different than what you've always
Uh,
learned, and the approach that you've always had from maybe your standard OBGYN. But wow, you've learned so much. I mean, there was so much health information that you discovered through your work with
yes.
them.
Yes, I had all of these health issues that were silently impacting my fertility, and I had no idea. And even my energy and things, like, none of it was big enough for me to seek a different doctor's opinion or help. I was just living with it and had no idea. And so I was able to treat all of that um, through Creighton and through working with these NAPRA doctors.
Wow, and you express that so well that if we think that if we can just push through it or if it's not significantly
Mhm.
hindering our lives, then we should just deal with it.
Yeah.
But there is more. And I truly believe that God wants us to pursue healing and
Uh,
not that everyone will be fully healed. That is not everyone's story, but there shouldn't be unnecessary delay or, on our healing if it's available to us. And
yeah.
so getting that word out about options that are available, like in your situation, being able to discover so much information that's not only going to be relevant to your reproductive health, which obviously it was, and you were able to conceive soon after all of that, but also your overall health. I mean, our
Mhm.
quality of lives as women, it
Thank you.
matters. And that's certainly true for you as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really amazing and beautiful that God designed our bodies that way, that our fertility is actually the first signpost that something is going wrong, or something needs to be addressed in our health. Because how can we give nutrients and energy and more of us to a baby when we need to address something and take care of our own bodies and selves first?
Mm.
So I'm grateful for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so interesting. I'll start working with clients and we'll begin charting, and they kind of expect to see this quote unquote regular
Uh,
cycle that looks like all the examples. And then they'll be surprised that it does not match that. And then they think, well, maybe next month, and it continues to look different. And then we can explore why that's
mm,
different and what could be going on behind the scenes that could cause that. Because you're right, you can see so much information on a Creighton chart because
mhm,
our reproductive system does give us valuable information for our overall health. And I feel like that's a very practical gift that Creighton
mhm.
gives to us in our ability to see these underlying issues. Have you had other benefits or other things that you've been surprised that it benefits you in different areas of life with your Creighton use?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, in moving overseas, not having to worry about where am I going to find hormonal birth control when I first got here, I was able to just keep charting and move on and deal with all of the transition, moving here, moving back. Beyond that, I think that just knowing that I'll always be able to see what's going on with my fertility, with my health, and if I'm going through a stressful season, it might reflect on my chart, or just give me useful information of when I need to take a step back, or even adjust my thyroid medication that has come up on my chart. And so, yeah, it's been very valuable to me in my health.
Fantastic. Well, if you could say one thing to our listeners, um, I always love to ask this question because I find that a lot of women, once they've had a transformative experience, they want other women to have this
Um,
too. So if you could say one thing to our listeners, what would you want it to be?
I would say that whether you are married or not married, whether you are trying to conceive or trying to avoid a pregnancy, working with Creighton is so valuable for your health. And um, your fertility is a sign of health. beyond just whether or not you can conceive a pregnancy. So I think it is so important for every woman to know what's going on with their fertility so that they can live healthier, more whole lives. Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. Every single woman on the face of the planet deserves to have access to this information.
Hmm.
It is so valuable, it's so critical, and we want to make it available to everyone. So, certainly, people can learn the Creighton Model System, which obviously you and I love. We feel like it's very valuable. But there are also so many free resources available out there. We've got obviously this podcast and podcasts like this that focus on natural fertility topics. Our website has free resources that are available that anybody can download at any time. And we try to have some strategic webinars and things, but we want to make sure this information is out there to others because it is something that everybody deserves to have access to. I agree. One question that I didn't ask you, Courtney, but I'm curious
Hmm.
about is has there been, has God met you in a unique way throughout this process of learning about your cycles and your fertility and your health?
I think that the fact that we have our daughter is a gift from the Lord. And I already would have known that she was a gift, but I think that because of the way that my fertility has gone, the journey I went through, I see her as even more of a miracle and a gift from God. And
Mm.
so I think he's met me in that just to show me like he really is the author and creator of life and that everyone is a walking miracle. So I feel like that's one way that God has met me in all of this.
Oh man, that is so true. When you start to understand how crazy impossible it seems that every single tiny little thing would go
Mm.
right to create a new life, it does also impact, I think, how we just engage with other people that we meet. You know, we see them as these miracles from God,
Yeah.
these image bearers of God, and it really helps
Mhm.
us to respect and love and honor these other people because they are miracles. They
Yeah,
proclaim the goodness of God just in their being here on the planet. And
absolutely.
that really does affect the reproductive approach to like our understanding of our own fertility. And
Mhm.
so often it's easy to sort of take it for granted. Like, hey, we can turn it on when we're ready. We can turn it off when we don't want it. And it's like, no, this is miraculous. This is
Yeah.
something that God does, but we get the privilege to partake in it, to participate in it, to collaborate with God, and that God would trust us with that, would invite us to be a part of that is
Yes.
still mind blowing to me. And I've been doing this for over 8 years now. You know, it's just, it really speaks to the goodness of God, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Courtney, thank you so much for being willing to be on the show, for sharing a little bit of your story and what the Creighton system and NAPR technology have meant to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, listeners, our Woven community is made up of some pretty incredible people. We do our best to ask honest questions of our fertility and of our faith because we believe that our bodies were made with beauty and with purpose, that we're intimately designed and loved by our Creator, and that our fertility plays a meaningful role in our lives. So we believe that this matters for all of us, just like Courtney said, regardless of our marital status or our pregnancy intentions, every single woman matters. And so I would love to invite you to be a part of our community, whatever that looks like. Maybe you want to learn the Creighton system like Courtney did and attend an upcoming introductory session. Maybe you want to learn more information and download one of those free resources that I mentioned on the website. Maybe you just want to go back and listen to more client stories like Courtney's. You are welcome here. We really want you to feel like you are a part of this community because you are. All right. Well, thanks for listening as always as we continue to explore together what it means to be woven well.